Hi, welcome to Astrology for GAN Traders. My name's Olga Morales, and I've come in again today. I want to explain a little bit more about the eclipses that are occurring. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet. People are going a little bit silly and I don't know, a bit of hysteria. I mean, they are special. Eclipses for me have always been a main focus of my research. I mean, I wrote my novel called Eclipse of the Soul in 2004, and that was the reason I wrote that novel is because I was researching eclipses because in 2012, if you remember, there was an eclipse on the 14th of November, happened to be my birthday, and it was in Australia. So I travelled all the way up to Cairns in Palm Cove, right under the centre line. And I was able to witness an eclipse on my birthday, and it was really magical. And I wanted to know how that has an impact on my life, the whole pattern. So I started researching eclipses, the Saros cycles, the Metonic cycle, as I explained in my previous video. And because eclipses belong to Saros families, you can, in your life, you often attract people that are part of that same soul family. So if you look at your, best friends or family members, you might have people that are separated either 18 to 19 years or 18.6, the actual nodal cycle, or halfway at around 9 years. You have people that are on the opposite side of the nodal axis that you come in, and they say they're karmic links. So people that we've probably known in past lives, and you either really love them at the first sight, or you really don't like them at all, depending on the relationship you've had in the past. So that's became my fascination. And that book actually eventually led me into finding out about double D GAN. So that's quite special. Okay, so that was or the story evolved. My story, before I even knew anything about GAN, was about a woman, an astrologer, who goes missing. Okay, and her husband has to find her. But then when I read Tunnel Through the Air, we know there's a missing character. Marie goes missing, and Robert Gordon wants to know where she is. Okay, so when this gentleman called me wanting a copy of my book, that's when he said to me, have you heard about W.D. Gann? And he couldn't believe that my story was very similar to Tunnel Through the Air. So there's another, I don't know, Twilight Zone moment in my life. And that was 19 years ago. Okay. So this is like this soul cycle for me. I'm doing my Metonic cycle. I plan to write another book. And it's taken me a little bit longer than what I anticipated because every time I start doing something, I get more ideas coming in. So I'm listening to what I'm downloading, and hopefully it's exactly what I need to publish. So today, I'm just going to look at something that it is important because um, there's a focus on the United States, not just for these two eclipses that we've had, and everyone's saying it's making the X, and over the United States. The fact is that we're just talking. I'm just talking about total solar eclipses, okay? Not all the other kinds. These are total. Um, there haven't been many over the United States prior to 2017. Okay, there was a bit of what we could say maybe quiet time. I'm only talking about total, okay? But from 2017 to 2052, there are going to be five, okay, in 35 years. Now, those numbers are really significant to me because any of you have read my book, Dawn of the Seventh Day, you're going to know why those dates are important because that's when that whole new Lord comes in, which was sat in Aries for that whole 36 years from, and so, I know there's a connection here that obviously I'm going to research more. I will probably go into the book when I think about it. Okay, so let's get started. Um, okay, let me just go back to another thing I wanted to point it out. People are saying to me, Olga, your dates aren't that great. 1970, this didn't happen. But what I didn't specify in my video that the eclipse doesn't happen just for that 1 year or that one day. These are things that have themes that continue. And the in the old mundane books, if you read them, according to Ptolemy, there were rules with the eclipses, and one of them was that for solar eclipses, especially the total ones, because they last longer. Okay, it's according to the duration of the eclipse. That's how long it's supposed to have an impact. So, particular one, this is just one of my tweets on X is about this one that's coming up on the 8th of April for the United States. It actually runs for the duration is 4.28 minutes, and that translates to 4.28 years. Okay, so that's supposed to, according to the old mundane astrologers, that's supposed to have an impact for 4.28 years. Okay, and that takes us into July the 19th, 2028. So that whole it's a whole 4-year cycle of this. I know it's interesting. Someone pointed out that's a whole electional thing. Whoever comes in to become president this year, I assume it's a him or whoever it is, um, then has that 4 years of this eclipse. Okay, so that's interesting looking at it that way. Um, and there's another thing I want to point out before I show you this slide. I've been getting people sending me, videos and stuff from the internet that misinformation again about eclipses and all the hysteria. And one woman's claiming that, because the sun and the moon are not in Aries, they're actually in Pisces, that they're not going to be able to cover each other up. This is what the thing is. The moon's not going to be able to cover the sun, and something else is going to cover the sun, and it's a cover up. It's like I can't remember the wording she used. Now, a lot of people don't understand the difference between sidereal and tropical astrology because I'm using tropical astrology, and there's still going to be an eclipse. So I can go into that in another video, but let's be clear what's out there, that there's a lot of misinformation. Okay, so what's going to happen is that from 2017 to 2052, there are going to be 5 total eclipses over the United States, total. Okay, and these are it. So I'm going to just animate the first one, number 1. That's already happened. That was the one in August in 2017. Number 2, I'm covering that up. I'm going to have to move myself. Is this the one that's coming up that the hysteria is about? April 8th, 2024. And then the next one, number three is right up here. The top, it just sort of nips in here. That's on the 23rd of August, 2044. And then number 4 is on the 12th of August, 2045. And then the last one is on the 10th of March, 2052. So this is like, for the next 35, but from 2017 to 52, we'll say 35 years, there's going to be 12, sorry, not 12, 5 total solar eclipses over the United States. So I've just called this United States eclipse. It's a lot of focus on one country, and like the books say, wherever the eclipse is seen is where it's going to have the most impact. So this says that there's going to be a lot of change in the United States over the next 36 years, 35. So, or less now because it's from 2017. You know what I'm talking about. It's specifically focused on the United States. So I zoomed in a little bit here. If you haven't seen this, you can look at the slides when you watch the video. But you can see some of the places where there's focus again by these eclipses, like here in Arkansas, Kentucky. I think this is in between here. I don't know all my states in America. I'm sorry. And you can see the lines going through. That's already happened. That one there, but there's a lot of concentration. Texas gets a lot in this, and yeah. So keep an eye on this. This is interesting research. If you want to go further down this path, I might put some of this in my book, because it's focused, and you can see those bands that there's what's this 28 years in here. This band goes through this part of the United States, and then there's another band that goes this way, and those cities in those states are going to be able to see the eclipse, which is, if you've never seen an eclipse, and I know most of America will be able to see part of it anyway. It's the most amazing experience. I loved it. It was just like everything goes very quiet. All the birds stop singing. It's just like, from day to night. And you got to make sure you got your glasses on. Make sure you got your eclipse glasses so you don't hurt your eyes. But it is a transforming event on many levels. And I suppose anciently they were omens of ill omens. People were afraid of them because they didn't understand them. In a way, the hysteria that's happening now, it's almost the same. But they are known to cause or be related to anything that is to do with the actual stability of the Earth, because you've got to imagine there's a big pull on our Earth, especially with the lunar eclipse, because we're in the middle, so it's pulling on both sides. Depending where the moon is too and what part of its cycle, there's lots of factors if they're going to have an impact in terms of earthquakes. Now, if you read any of these books, someone asked me. This is one of Raphael's book on mundane astrology. I've got all safari stuff. If you read their work on eclipses, they'll tell you exactly the rules, you know, and they often say that eclipses are around or earthquakes happen nearly. There's a lot of cases when they actually happen on the exact day. But then also there's time, as I've said, it can be 3 or 4 months. Gann always talks about 90 degrees. So, and the other thing about W.D. Gann, his novel Tunnel Through the Air, the last page is actually set when there's an eclipse on the 31st of August 1932, and it was visible over New York. Now, he didn't do that just coincidentally, obviously. There's a code in that cycle. I'll have that in my book. So, obviously, eclipses were important to him. There's more information about eclipses and Tunnel Through the Air. And that was one of the things I started doing. And I remember I talk about this before, that when I did my first talk on eclipsing the stock market, I called it at a astrological conference, and they had a raffle. And obviously, on page 56, if you've got Tunnel Through the Air, I'm not going to give too much away because I want you to read it. He talks about eclipses, and it's on page 56. And so, the whole day I'm talking about 56, 56, 56, and guess what happens? The person pulls out a raffle ticket, and it was number 56. So, although those sort of things happen to me all the time, I do love it. Anyway, so hopefully this is interesting for people. There's a lot of focus on the United States, big changes. Eclipses usually mean that there are cover ups or, excuse me, I'm going to cough. I don't want to cough. Excuse me. Because there's occultations, obviously. Um, People talk about not being able to see the real thing, or things are covered up and then exposed. I think more things are exposed. And it's interesting today in the news, I've just seen all that stuff about Diddy. I don't even know who this Diddy is. I know he was a rapper and a big music in the music industry and everything, been accused of sexual rings and pedophile rings and all that thing. Now that's the sort of thing that I believe eclipses do. They expose anything that's been hidden, and it might be a 19-year cycle. I don't know how long this whole thing's been. He's been doing this whole thing. So it's interesting. It's another Epstein type of situation, and I'm glad. I'm glad they're all being exposed. That's what has to happen at the end of these cycles. All the darkness have to be exposed before we can move into a new energy, is where we're moving. And so whatever's dark and hidden on the underground, that's got to come up. So I'm glad that's happening, especially in eclipses. I'm hoping more. And maybe that's a big cleanup with all these lines going over the United States. I'm not saying it's just the United States, but it just putting focus on whatever's been hidden is going to be exposed. So anyway, thank you for listening. I hope I didn't go on too long. And I'll make a few more of these. I really enjoy talking about eclipses. It's one of my favourite topics of research, and I have done a lot of it over the years. And yeah, thanks for listening.